All right, event trader coming on here. Just keep an eye out on the markets, trading in a pretty tight range, basically between that 64, 65, 75 area for the most part. That's been going on pretty much throughout European trading too. So got that holiday week setting up at the moment. Usually means a little bit of tight trading range. Sending triangle is kind of what I'm expecting to see over the course of that. But as we've stated, a number of headlines, in particular NVIDIA, still to come. But for now, our focus is going to switch over to the macro and the geopolitical situation. And of course, that means bringing in our policy analyst, Carmine Atteo. So, Carmine, how are you doing this morning, buddy?
Oh, pretty good, Gavin. How was your weekend?
I was good. It was good. Nothing too fancy on my end. A little time in New York, and that's about it. Now just kind of getting ready for a week here in front of the Labor Day weekend. How about yourself? How are the tables?
I actually didn't go this weekend because I'm about to go on vacation and play a lot of poker. So I usually take the weekend before I go off to kind of just take a day off because I'm going to be playing so much. So no, no, no.
Refresh the batteries.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Where in Florida are you going to be?
Well, I'm going to go to Tampa first, and then I'm going to go down to Miami. So both are pretty good poker destinations. So, and of course, we have the nice beaches, and I keep my fingers crossed for no hurricanes. I was looking at disturbance number one. I know it's like they said a 40% chance, and I'm like, I've always watched those storms, and the ones that kind of sneak into the Caribbean through the Leeward Islands usually are the ones that end up in the Gulf. The ones that are kind of further north always turn out to sea. So I was a little worried about worried about that one, but looks like it's going to be fine.
Yeah, and I'd agree. Ever since I moved down to Wilmington, that NHC National
Yeah,
Hurricane Center NOAA site, I keep on in the favorites just to keep an eye out on things, making sure that
yeah.
nothing gets too far away. But yeah, so well, fingers crossed on that for sure for you there, and happy that you're getting a little time off. But let's talk a little bit about what's going on here in the U.S. Certainly, a lot of headlines continue to come out from the administration there. So one of the big ones, of course, was them taking a 10% stake in Intel, which had been rumored for some time. So why don't we talk a little bit about that? We'll keep an eye out on the Intel chart, of course, while we're talking along here, sitting at 25.36.
Yeah, so the Trump administration said they're going to use chip back funds to purchase 10% stake in Intel. They say the government will not be on the board or be involved with any management decisions. So basically, what they did here is they purchased 433.3 million primary shares of common stock at a price of 20.47. So we're trading at roughly 25.35 right now. So that 20.47 level will probably be a very important level if we ever get close to that again for both political and financial reasons. So keep an eye on that level there. Uh,
Yeah, good information.
yeah. Uh, so this is essentially the New York Times had a good piece over the weekend. It was titled "America's newest activist investor, Donald Trump." They basically kind of explained all the different things that he's taking stakes in and so forth. So Intel is going to be the third company that the administration has taken a stake in. The other two, of course, are U.S. Steel and MP Materials. So MP Materials was basically a preferred stock situation, so it's a little different. And MP U.S. Steel, of course, is the golden share, as the administration calls it. So it's not exactly the same as Intel. Intel is kind of the first real common stock equity stake, which is kind of why I think it's a little bit more notable than the other two. But the other two, of course, are worth mentioning as well. And the article also talks about how the Trump administration's, demanding that NVIDIA and AMD and so forth give the government 10% of their China revenues in exchange for allowing um, the chips to be sold to China. So that's the H20 chip. They haven't made a decision yet on the more powerful chips yet, but that's for the H20 for NVIDIA. But so yeah, I mean, I would expect more of this. I mean, the Chips Act is it's interesting because they're kind of using that as a vehicle to do this, right, where they can do it legally. And the Chips Act doesn't say you can't. So they're belief is that they should be able to do this. Now there probably will be some court challenges, but I don't really think those are gonna hold up on this. I think these are gonna be this is gonna kind of get the stamp of approval, and I don't think Congress is going to try to amend the Chips Act to say that Trump can't do this. And even if he did, if they tried it again, he would just veto it, similar to with the tariffs and everything like that. He would just veto it. It'll be the end of that. So I think this is gonna stay in place, and there'll probably be more of it.
Any thoughts on who could be in the crosshairs?
Yeah, I mean, I would look at so the bigger ones a lot of people talk about are AMD and Taiwan Semi. So Taiwan Semi came out and said, no, we don't want the U.S. to take a stake in there. So they're not really that open to it, it seems like. But from the president's perspective, he basically sees it. Okay, if you guys want to keep getting this money, then you're gonna have to let us take a stake. That's kind of what he told the CEO of Intel, basically, right? So, but he really cannot withhold that money. It's different that it's one thing if he wants to trade it for an equity stake. I don't think Congress or the courts would have a problem with that per se. But there might be criticism. Of course, there'll be criticism about it, but I don't think they'll be able to do anything about it. But if, let's say, he holds back the money completely, that's when I think the courts will step in and say, "Hey, you can't do this because this was a law that was passed by Congress." So, uh, that's a little, it's a little easier, harder for him to do that. Hold the money back and say, "Okay, basically, give us a stake, otherwise you're not getting anything." I think that's a little harder to do. So we'll see what happens, but there could be other. I think the main focus is going to be on things that are are deemed as national security interests, such as chips, rare earths, and things like that. So steel, aluminum, things like that. So but yeah, so Kevin Hass, the White House economic advisor, was on, and he responded to a lot of the criticism, saying that this was essentially socialism. He responded to that by saying, "Hey, we're giving the money that we were going to under the CHIPS Act, we were just going to give this money to Intel, and now we're getting something for it." Of course, the pushback from a lot of people like Rand Paul in the Senate was saying, "Hey, no, this is not This is not how America operates. We don't take stakes in companies. That's against free market principles and all of that." So that's but what was interesting too is you saw Senator Bernie Sanders come out and say, "Hey, he likes this idea." So this is one of those really strange things that Trump does, where he gets kind of the approval from the further left of the political spectrum, and the further right of the political spectrum he alienated, and everybody else in the middle is kind of like just crickets, basically. I mean, you hear crickets from most of the people in the Senate and most of the people in the House. It's just people on the left are saying, "Oh yeah, I like the idea." But people on the further right, more libertarian like Rand Paul, saying, able to speak out and say, "Hey, this is essentially corporate socialism." So that's kind of the recap so far of what the criticism in Congress.
Feels like Bernie and Trump are in more agreement more often than Rand and Trump.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, wait till if Trump this is came to my mind. If Trump says he's going to reclassify marijuana, I mean, you'll see a similar reaction. You'll see Bernie going, "Oh yeah, I love that." And Rand Paul saying, "That's the most terrible thing you ever could do." So, but yeah, but yeah, that's what's happening.
All right. Well, we'll keep an eye, obviously, on that situation, see how it unfolds. I don't know. I'm assuming Trump will try to use leverage to pressure some foundry business for Intel. So it's going to be interesting to see how
Yeah.
that plays out.
Yeah,
But
especially if that stock gets closer to that 20 level, he's going to try to, do anything he can to prop it up, because that's going to be, let's say, like Intel trades down like 21, 20. There's going to be a lot of headlines saying, "Hey, the government's losing money. This was a horrible deal." And then, you might see something like that. So,
yeah, the Trump put, I guess we'll start
yeah,
calling it for Intel.
exactly.
All right. So another headline that was making the rounds last week, of course, was FHFA Director Bill Pulte accusing Fed Governor Lisa Cook of mortgage fraud. Trump was pressuring her on Friday to resign. Has threatened to fire her. So where do we stand with that situation, Carmine?
Yeah, so just like you said, FHA Bill Pulte, he accused Lisa Cook of mortgage fraud. Basically, he claimed, of course, everybody's innocent until proven guilty in this country, but these are just his claims that she had two primary residences, and you can't do that to get a favorable mortgage treatment. And so he referred it to the Department of Justice. She has not been charged yet with any type of crime. These are just allegations so far. And so I really the ball's in the DOJ's court to see if they were able to bring the charges. If they do bring charges, I think it'll be very hard for her to keep her position. I think if that does happen, I think that Trump would fire her because he would have the um, kind of the let me figure out a way to put this the headline, so to speak, to be able to do it because you can only fire a Fed governor for cause, and if the DOJ indicts her for this, then he would, in his mind, would have the necessary cause to fire Lisa Cook. So I've always said, when we talk about Powell, I've always said that Powell's job is safe, and it's been safe so far. But for Lisa Cook, I think she's a goner. I think she's going to get fired. And it's just a matter of time. I think President Trump is basically waiting for the DOJ to weigh in, and if the DOJ does say that she, charged her for this, I think she will be fired, and that'll open up another seat for the president to appoint another person. Now, what's interesting about this, what's interesting about this is that you have the political angle, right? Because um, a lot of people are saying that this is just a political reason to try to get another seat on the Fed, and they may be right because if you look at it, Trump has Bowman and Waller right now on the Fed. He's going to get Stephen Moran on the Fed, which we'll talk about in a second. So that's three. And if he's able to fire Lisa Cook and appoint somebody else in that seat, then it's four out of the seven Fed governors will be appointed by the president. So he will have essentially control over the Fed board. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to do exactly what he wants. I mean, I think Chris Waller and Michelle Bowman, might push back on some things, but they might be more favorable to him than some of the other people. So, um, but you still have the other voters in the Fed of the regional banks, right? You have like the Chicago and Richmond and all that. But so um, I looked this up, and actually, a Fed governor can remove a regional bank president if the Fed board can move a regional bank president if she likes, or he or she likes to do that. So that might be something that's comes up down the line. I don't know, but um, the FOMC is really, if he succeeds in this, the most important thing I think for investors is that the FOMC will kind of be more transformed in Trump's image, which means more dovish, lower rates, and um, you know uh, and so forth. So probably less regulation too, because one of the reasons why he doesn't want to move but Bowman over to the chair position is because he likes her so much on the regulatory front. So expect lower regulation, lower rates, and more dovish members if they are able to succeed on this. On a related note, Senate Trump is pushing the Senate to confirm Stephen Moran before the September Fed meeting. That's going to be a tall order because the Democrats could do a lot of things to delay the procedures here. You still have to have the hearing. They have to come back from Labor Day recess next week. They have to schedule the hearing. They have to have the hearing. They have to have the initial votes. They have to have the amendments. They have to have the final vote. So the Democrats can do a lot of things to delay. So I think it's going to be tough to get him on that seat before the September Fed meeting. I mean, they might do it like a day before and say, "Hey, you're here and welcome to the meeting." Um, uh, but uh, but I think that's going to be tough to get him in place before September. But I do think he'll be in place before the October meeting.
Yeah, so October, you think he will be, or
Yeah, he'll
no?
be there before October for sure. I'm skeptical about September, but they're going to try to push it as fast as they can.
What is the schedule for Congress coming up in terms of when they'll be on the desk and off?
Yeah, so they're coming back on a week from Tuesday. Don't expect anything, too earth shattering to happen on that day. That's pretty much the day where they catch up on their email and just and everything like that. So I wouldn't expect a hearing that day. I would probably expect a hearing probably later in the week from Iran, and then. Like I said, they have to have all those procedural votes and the final vote, and having that done before September 16th, I think it will be a little bit of a tall order, but we'll see.
All right. Anything else on the Fed front?
That's pretty much it.
Okay. Over the weekend, Carmine, I know we were texting together. You had Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on some of the shows, as well as Vice President Vance. So, what were the developments on that Russia-Ukraine front?
Yeah, so Vance is pretty optimistic still, but I think Putin is probably going to try to string this along as much as he can, right? Because he obviously wants to take full control of Ukraine, and he's just going to try to string them along as much as he can and wait for the best time to make a deal. And I don't think that's going to happen until they put more pressure on him as far as sanctions is concerned. So Lavrov was basically Kristen Welker did a really good interview with Sergei Lavrov. I think she was really tough on him about the killing of civilians and so forth. She even said that you either have really bad aim or you're trying to kill civilians. So which is it? I like that a lot. I think that was a really good line by her. And so. So he basically said that we'll meet when Zelensky when the agenda is ready, but no meeting is planned. So that's basically, like I said, trying to kick the ball down the field a little bit further, right? Trying to delay things a little bit more. I wouldn't expect a Zelensky meeting, in the foreseeable future, but between Zelensky and Putin. But there might be if Putin wants to kind of delay things a little bit more, he might agree to like a principals meeting. He might agree with like maybe a meeting between Lavrov and whoever his counterpart is in Ukraine, and kind of get things going that way. That might kind of be satisfactory for Trump in the near term, and that will also kind of be satisfactory to Putin because it's kind of just delaying things even further and keeping them, on the war front in Ukraine a little bit more. So maybe there might be a lower principles meeting, but I wouldn't expect the Zelensky Putin meeting before that.
All right. Anything else on that front then, Carmine?
That's pretty much it.
All right. Last week we got some of the details of the U.S. EU trade agreement. One of the problems folks have had, of course, has been that there's been a number of announcements that have been short on details. So we got some more details here. What stuck out to you? Who do you see as winners and losers there?
Yeah, so I think the big deal, of course, is that which we already knew, was that the tariff rate's going to be 15%. Uh, so um, and of course it'll be zero on the other side. Apparently, one of the biggest things that stuck out to me was the fact that they are not going to lower the car tariffs. The car tariffs are going to remain at 27% until the EU actually passes a bill to lower their tariff barriers. So basically, they're saying the Trump administration is saying to EU, "You guys go first, and then once you do that, then we'll lower the auto tariffs." So that kind of stuck out to me. It also the purchases of $750 billion of LNG over the past 4 years, and over the next 4 years, and the $40 billion of AI chips. I think this is. I mean, let's face it. I mean, Europe needs LNG, right? So they don't want to buy it from Russia, even though they're still kind of doing that. But uh, so they're probably what we're going to buy a lot of LNG anyway, and I expect them to buy a lot of LNG. Whether it'll be 750 billion, it remains to be seen. But I think they'll buy a significant amount of LNG because they obviously need it. So, and 40 billion of AI chips. I mean, that's kind of a smaller number too. And these numbers to me, they're not going to not purchase nothing, right? But they're gonna. I don't think they're going to purchase what these numbers are, right? If let's say for example we get to the end of Trump's term and they purchase like 550 billion, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, right? And maybe 30 billion of AI chips. Like you kind of get close, but not to the actual target. That's kind of what I would expect with a lot of this stuff.
Okay. Real quick on the trading side, quant trader, he's out there purchasing Cipher Mining, ticker symbol CIFR, following confirmation at the 634 on the Fibonacci charts. He lays out his targets there. Stop is a close below 544. So we'll watch that trade there for quant trader. Carmine, one thing that I did see too is the digital tax. It doesn't look like Europe's going to push forward with that as aggressively.
Yeah, so that's another thing that the Trump administration wanted, and we'll see what the enforcement is on that because for the tariff barriers, they kind of have a clear enforcement right. Hey, we're not going to lower those auto tariffs until you guys do that. But we'll see what the enforcement is, and of course, if it gets buy-in from all 27 nations. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But that's something they mentioned as well, as you know.
All right. Got a couple of questions in there and feedback. We'll circle back around to them before we let Carmine loose here.
Okay,
But Carmine, anything else on the US-EU trade deal?
that's pretty much it.
Okay, so obviously, Powell took much of the headlines on Friday there, leading to a nice push of about 90% of the stock mark, 90% of stocks. However, there was another headline that caught some attention too that helped with the tailwind. That came from Canada. So what did we see there?
Yeah, so Canada says they're basically going to match what the U.S. is doing as far, or match Mexico, further, so to speak. I always said that the Mexico's president Sheinbaum kind of was going in circles around Carney as far as dealing with these tariffs, but she managed to kind of not retaliate and kind of not get the full ire. Yes, there's tariffs, but the USMCA goods are excluded, so that's like 80% of what they do. So it's really like a tariff in disguise, so to speak, on Mexico. And Canada had much more of the ire of the president. But now I think maybe Scheibaum kind of talked to her friend up there in Canada and said, hey, this is how you should handle things. And so they're kind of matching now what Mexico's doing. And they're basically saying, okay, USMCA goods are excluded as far as retaliation, and the president was happy about that. We'll see if the president lowers their tariff rates because right now the Canada's tariff rate is at 35% and Mexico's is at 25. And so if I wouldn't be surprised over the next, maybe after the Labor Day holiday, that they may have some kind of phone call and make some kind of promises and they get that tariff rate lowered. Because I think this is kind of a stepping stone towards that, but we'll see what happens with that.
All right. Uh, Here's another interesting piece. And so the last 2 weeks, Carmine, we had Fitch come out and affirm the U.S. ratings, and then
S&P
also
too.
S&P as well. So both cited what the tariffs were helping improve the fiscal situation and some cuts to spending too. The CBO came out with an interesting report on Friday as well. It was Friday or or over the weekend. I'm not
It was
100%.
Friday afternoon. I think it was like 1 or 2 in the
Okay,
afternoon.
just tack
Yeah.
that on for another tailwind. But what the CBO have to say in its findings?
Yeah, so they basically did the analysis of the tariffs. Now, remember, they did an analysis before, but the tariff rates have gone up on some of the other countries, so they revised it, right? So they say that over a 10-year period, the tariffs will bring in $4 trillion. Now that a lot of people are probably wondering, well, how do you know the tariffs are going to be on for 10 years? Well, you could do the same thing annually, right? You could say, okay, it's $400 billion a year, and that's kind of how I think that's how I would look at this, right? So right now we're running deficits at 1.5, 1.6 trillion. Um, and $400 billion that might lower that a little bit. So we'll see what happens. But on the other end, of course, is the big beautiful bill, which the CBO said would add to the deficit of roughly 3.5 trillion over the next 10 years. So that's the balancing act, right? And essentially where we are right now. Um, you know, if you kind if the tariff revenue kind of cancels out the big beautiful bill, right? As far as deficits are concerned, so it's not you have to kind of put both of those into perspective when you're looking at the deficit. Uh, I think it does make it a little harder for the courts to kind of strike these down. Um, I still think there's a good possibility that the Supreme Court, the appeals court, I think is going to strike them down. I think that ruling can come probably any time now. Uh, but then the Supreme Court, I think, will put a stay on it and allow the tariffs to proceed, and we'll see what the Supreme Court does. I think a middle point of what the Supreme Court could do is say, hey, we we are not going to make you guys refund the tariffs, right? So you can't put any further tariffs in place beyond the 232s, but you don't have to refund the existing tariffs. That might be a middle ground where they kind of decide, but we'll see what happens. But I think the revenue that's coming in is making it make it a little tougher, I think, for the courts to knock these down. But I do think, like I said, that the appeals court, which is ruling expected any time now, might knock him down, probably will knock him down. But the Supreme Court will come in and say, hey, we're going to issue a stay on that order and allow the tariffs to proceed until they hear the case.
All right. Moving along, then, gerrymandering's been a pretty big topic the last
Yep.
couple of weeks. I know that's one of the cornerstones for your thoughts on why it's going to be so difficult for the House and Senate to flip, well, at least the House anyway. But what's some of the things going on back there? Uh, what are the headlines we should be looking at, and how do you see it affecting the 2026 midterms?
Yeah. Um, so basically, Texas passed their congressional map, which converts about five likely Democratic seats to likely Republican seats. Now, there's one out of those five that I think the Democrats might still hang on to. It's one that's by the Houston suburbs, but you have to understand that seat before was D plus 35, so they had no chance of winning it before. And now they have, probably a 50% chance of winning it. So 50% is better than nothing. So either way, they're it benefits them. But I think four are pretty solidly going to go red out of those five. Like I said, the one over there might be hold Democratic. On the California side, they passed their congressional map too, which converts five Republican seats to five very solidly Democratic seats. Um, so the California map is even better, I think, for the Democrats than the Texas map is for the Republicans because of, like I said, that one seat there. California really doesn't have that problem. But um, the problem that California does have is that it has to be approved by the voters, right? So I'm really curious to know how they word it on the ballot, right? If they word it as, do you want to suspend California's independent redistricting commission? Then I think no might have a shot. But if they word it like, do you want to suspend California's independent redistricting commission to fight back against the Texas Republicans and President Trump? Then I think yes is for absolute surety. So it just depends on how they word the question on the ballot, right? If this has any chance of happening, right? So my base case right now is that it will pass. There's been some polling that's been negative on it, but I think once Gavin Newsom kind of gets the word out that he's kind of fighting back against Trump and the Texas Republicans, who are very unpopular there in California, then I think that those polling numbers will change and he'll be able to succeed in this. It also so that kind of nets it out, right? Kind of 5 and 5, right? But then there's Ohio, there's Indiana, Missouri, and Florida that want to add seats for the Republicans as well. So Cook Political Report, God bless him, kind of did a whole analysis on this, right? And they basically updated their rankings for the after all this redistricting, right? So they say there's going to be 215 seats that are safe or lean Republican, and 200 seats that are safe or lean Democratic, and 18 toss-ups. Now you need 218 for a majority. Now most of the time in a midterm election where the party out of power loses most if not all the toss-ups, and that's what I'm expecting this time. I'm still expecting the Democrats can take the House. Just want to make that clear. I still think they'll take the House, but I think it'll be a trickle and not a wave. And in fact, I think waves are probably going to be a thing of the past after these maps. You'll see trickles. When like the opposite parties in control of Congress, you'll see trickles where they take control of the House again. But it won't be anything like Obama's 60 seats or anything like that. I think that's going to be kind of etched in history as the biggest midterm wave in history for a long time because I don't think anything will ever get close to that again with these new maps. But yes, my base case is that the Democrats will take the House, but it's going to be a very, very small majority with these new maps coming in. So but we'll see what happens with that. On the Senate side, Cook updated the rankings as well. They say 52 seats for the GOP, 45 seats for the Democrats, and three toss-ups. So we'll see what happens with that. But it looks right now pretty solidly for the Republicans for the Senate. But we'll keep an eye on it, how they rank those as well. But the House, I think, is going to be the far more interesting chamber for the midterms because I think it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be right now. I'm expecting a blue trickle, and I think that's what we'll get if these um, uh, redistricting goes this way. Now, I will say that if California voters, hypothetically speaking, I'm not expecting this, but let's say hypothetically speaking, the California voters reject that ballot referendum, and then California can't change their map, Well, then the Senate, the House is going to be a toss-up. It's going to be right down the middle as far as probably 50-50 chance for each party. Right now, I would say the Republicans only have about a 30% chance. But if California rejects that, they probably will have a 50% chance. So that referendum on November 4th is going to be a very, very key thing to watch as far as the control of midterms going forward.
Okay. And there's really no way of policing these
Well, there's going to be
redistricting, right?
court challenges in Texas, but like the Texas Supreme Court is 9-0 conservative, right? So I mean, it's pretty much a done deal there. But gerrymandering is something that both sides do. The Republicans appoint to like Massachusetts and Illinois. Democrats appoint to Texas and Florida. I think this is going to be something that continues. Another aspect of this is that the Supreme Court's going to look at in the fall whether or not you could have minority districts, right? Districts just based on minority populations. And if they strike that down, then Louisiana can change their map. Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, and South Carolina can all change their maps because they have districts in those states that they probably don't really want to have there that are Democratic, but they do it because of the Voting Rights Act. And if the Supreme Court strikes that down, they can change those to Republican as well. So that's something to keep in mind. But that's going to be a 2026 story. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But that's something that they can might help the Republicans as well. If you look at like there was a Reuters story over the weekend that this is going to mean that the Republicans will control the House for decades. I'm very, very skeptical of that. Okay, whenever somebody tells me that some one party is going to control everything for 20 years, or I'm very, very skeptical of that because the reason being is because um, there's different electorates in each type of election, right? There's special elections, there's midterm elections, and there's presidential elections. Each have a very different turnout models, right? And when you have a Republican in the White House, it's just very likely that there's going to be at least a Democratic trickle as far as the midterm elections. I expect at this time as well.
All right. Well, we'll be watching that unfold here, and obviously coming up to just about a year away from those
Yep.
midterms, so it's going to be naturally a hot topic in 26.
Yep.
All right. One thing that we probably won't be looking at is a third party running in those elections. So what do we got going on that front, Carmine?
Yeah, so Elon Musk is reversing, according to Wall Street Journal, is reversing on his plan to create a new political party. He wants to focus on his companies, and he says he's considering supporting Vice President J.D. Vance for president in 2028. Vance, I think, will have a big head if he decides to run, which I think is an almost a surety. I think he'll have a pretty big head start as far as the money goes. Right now, money doesn't really guarantee that you're going to win, obviously, because Kamala Harris had more money, so did Hillary Clinton, and so did Mitt Romney, and look what happened to them. So it doesn't really, it's not really a good harbinger of who's going to win, but he's going to have a good head start as far as the funding is concerned, because I think that a base case right now for the Republican primary is that the field will pretty much be cleared once Trump endorses J.D. Vance, and I expect that to happen, before before the primaries begin.
All right. We'll be watching out for that. Okay, Carmine, let's take a look. There's a couple questions in feedback here. Um, One person's asking, um, how bad will it be in New York City when Mandami wins, or will the Senate stop most of what he wants to do? I assume they mean the state Senate, because I don't
Yeah, the
think that,
states. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It won't be the. It
Um,
won't be the
so,
Republican. Won't be.
I guess not going to ask you on Mamdani's policies there, but just in terms of who do you see leading that race, and I guess the impact that it could have on the national elections.
Yeah. So if you look at the latest poll from Siena College, um, these numbers are approximately. I'm going off of memory, so don't uh, uh, don't say they're wrong. But I think Badami's right around 42%, and Chris Cuomo. I'm sorry, Chris Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo is right around 28%, and Eric Adams is right around 15, and Curtis Sela is right around 12 or something like that. So basically, if you look at this, right, one of them everybody needs to get out of the race, and it needs to be one on one for from the opposition against Manami to have a chance. But right now, they're kind of looking at each other like, no, you drop out, no, you drop out, no, you drop out. So so as long as that's the case, I think Manami's at a cruise to victory. As far as the question is concerned with the state senate, yeah. So a lot of the things that Manami wants to do, he really needs approval from Albany for, right? Albany. When I talk about Albany, I'm meaning the government, the New York State government in Albany, New York, from the capital, right? So, like for example, for the buses that he wants to be free, for the corporate tax increase, he needs approval from Albany for that. Now, one of the interesting things that I saw a few weeks ago was that AOC was campaigning in a lot of these rural districts where Elise Stefanik is being represents, right? Elise Stefanik is going to run for New York governor. So that kind of tells to me that she might want to take a shot at running for New York governor. And if she does that, she's not going to run for president, number one. And number two, if she does win, which I think she'll be a favorite if she decides to do that, then if she does win, she'll be able to kind of rubber stamp a lot of the stuff that Madami wants to do, because she'll have control over she'll have the governor's mansion, and she'll have a lot of influence over the state legislatures as far as what he would pass. So, under that scenario, I think that he could get a lot of this stuff done if he has an ally in the governor's mansion. But if he doesn't, then I think it's gonna be tough.
All right. Just keep a quick update here. Scalp banking profits on the remainder of his UMAX swing long. Good for a 30% gain there for scalp trader. All right, Carmine. The other question, this was a hot topic in the trading room last week, and that is the schedule for Trump's potential change of classification of marijuana there. So, what's the latest on that? Are there any key dates we should be looking at, and time frame if you have any idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could come anytime. My base case right now is that he will reclassify it as a less dangerous drug, because it kind of matches what he voted for in the election, right? Because going for those of you who don't know, in Florida they had a referendum on the ballot to legalize marijuana. And so DeSantis, Trump was actually on the opposite side of the governor, Ron DeSantis. There, governor, successfully defeated that. But Trump, when he voted for himself for president, he also voted for, obviously, for that referendum, and he voted yes on that referendum. So that I think, to me, is an indication that he will declassify it, and that could come anytime. There was this. He talked about it a couple of weeks ago, saying that he's considering it. When he's considering something, it usually takes a few weeks or so, and then that he makes his decision. So maybe sometime in the fall, I would expect that to be reclassified.
All right, so there you have it. So, all right, Carmine, did we miss anything else out there then?
No, that's pretty much it.
Okay, so next time we'll be talking to you. Won't be until about September 22nd, right between Labor Day weekend and a little vacation for yourself down to the state of Florida there, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking
Okay,
forward. I'll be back. We'll be back on the September 23rd, and the big topic of discussion will be the government funding bill.
yeah, I was going to say in the time frame, give me three things to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, so keep an eye out if the House decides that they're going to, pass a continuing resolution that keeps the current funding levels in place. The Democrats aren't going to like that because they're going to want more funding for certain things, right? Let's say Schumer says, okay, we're not going to do that. That's another thing to keep in mind, because I think Schumer kind of doesn't have the political capital that he had before to do this again. So if the Republicans all stick together and able to pass something out of the House and say, "Hey, we're going home. You guys, if you guys shut the government, it's on you." Then that's something to keep in mind as well if they do that. But for the first couple weeks, I think there's going to be, while I'm on vacation, I think there's going to be a lot of wrangling back and forth, a lot of comments back and forth. But nothing substantial will probably be done until the last possible minute, and I'll be back before then, and then we'll see how things go.
All right. Well, Carmine, thank you very much for taking the time out and chatting with us today. Certainly very much appreciated. And we'll continue to track these stories while you're gone, and look forward to hearing what you have to say when you come back to the mic here. But thanks for taking the time today, and we'll talk to you soon. And have a great vacation.
Sounds good. Thanks, Gavin. Have a good one.
Okay, you too.